Shalom. In this week's Sedra Re'eh, idolatry is a prohibition mentioned multiple times throughout the Torah. In the 21st century, idolatry doesn't seem like the most relevant prohibition or concern of Jewish communities. It is rare, if it ever happens, that rabbis exhort their congregants about idolatry and the need to stop worshiping idols. It seems impossible that something God spoke about so many times in the Torah would become completely irrelevant in contemporary times. How can the frequent repetition of idolatry be understood in light of contemporary times? In this week's Torah portion, the opening verses state the following: See this day, Re'eh, I set before you blessings and curses. Blessings if you obey the commandments of your God that I enjoin upon you this day, and curse if you do not obey the commandments of your God, but turn away from the path that I enjoin upon you this day, and follow other gods whom you have not experienced. In his commentary to these verses, Rashi explained, these verses teach that someone who serves idols departs from the entire path of life that has been commanded to Bnei Israel. From this passage, the rabbis taught the well-known dictum that he who acknowledges the divinity of an idol is as though he denied the Torah in its entirety. Rashi actually only transcribed half the statement of the rabbis. The full statement reads, he who acknowledges the divinity of an idol is as though he denied the Torah in its entirety, like Rashi said. But he who denies idolatry in its entirety is as though he acknowledges the divinity of the Torah. This teaching is consistent with the teaching of the Talmud about Mordechai from the Purim story. It says that Mordechai came from the tribe of Benjamin. Why then was he referred to as a Yehudi? On account of the fact that he repudiated idol worship. For anyone who repudiates idolatry is called Yehudi. Why did our rabbis put so much emphasis on idolatry and the denial of idolatry? Why do they connect repudiation of idolatry with validation of the Torah? Later in our Torah portion, we are commanded, you must destroy all the sites at which the nations you are to dispossess worship their gods, whether on lofty mountains, up on the hills, or under a tree. In Hebrew, the original text of the verse begins with a double verb form of the directive. You shall destroy, abei ta'abdun. And the Gemara asks, what do the rabbis derive from this double verb? The Gemara answers, this double verb is necessary to teach that when one destroys an object of idol worship, he needs to root out all the traces of it. It isn't enough to destroy the idols that you find, but you must search out any trace of idols. In his Mor Nevuchim, the guide to the perplexed, Maimonides wrote, you know from the repeated declarations in the Torah that the principal purpose of the entire Torah was the removal and utter destruction of idolatry and all that is connected to it, even its name and everything that might lead to any such practices. How great is the usefulness of every mitzvah that delivers us from this great error and leads us back to the truth faith, that God, the creator of all things, rules the universe, that he must be served, loved, and feared, and not those imaginary deities. As Maimonides explained, the Torah's purpose is to move the Jewish people away from idolatry to the true idea that there is a God. One cannot maintain that there is truth to idolatry and that there is a God. The many exhortations against idolatry found in the Torah are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago, because the prohibition against idolatry is more about maintaining that there is a God and not about worshiping false gods. Understanding that there is a God is the most important aspect of a Jew's life. Shabbat Shalom.